Let's get right to the very latest. The death toll has now topped 40,000 here in the U.S., with more than 755,000 confirmed cases. Despite that surge, protests against stay-at-home orders have expanded to more than a dozen states, including a large rally in Colorado yesterday that saw demonstrators being confronted by healthcare workers. Meantime, New York State will begin aggressive antibody testing today to determine who's already been infected with the virus. That is viewed as an essential step toward eventually reopening. And take a look at our results from our new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. 58% of voters worry the U.S. will move too quickly to loosen restrictions, leading to another spike in cases and deaths. So we do have a lot to get to this morning. We're going to start with NBC White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Hey, Kristen, good morning.
Hey, Hoda, good morning to you. Pressure is mounting this morning on the federal government and President Trump to do more to help states to get those critical testing supplies they say they need. And it comes as more pockets of protesters took to the streets over the weekend, demanding that life get back to normal. This morning, showdown coast to coast, with protests erupting, calling for the end to the economic lockdown. Some protesters even seen clashing with healthcare workers.
Freedom is what we want. Freedom is what we demand.
The president defending the demonstrators on Sunday.
Well, you're allowed to protest. I mean, they feel that way. I watched the protest and they were all 6 feet apart. I mean, it was a very orderly group of people.
After tweeting last week that states led by Democratic governors like Michigan, hard hit by COVID-19, should be liberated.
I don't think it's helpful to encourage demonstrations and encourage people to go against the president's own policy.
It comes as the president announced he is invoking a Korean War-era law to increase production of swabs critical to carrying out coronavirus tests.
We're preparing to use the Defense Production Act to increase swab production in one U.S. facility by over 20 million additional swabs per month.
And Mr. Trump pushing back against governors who say the federal government needs to do more to help states get the tests they need, insisting it's up to them.
They want to have us, the federal government, do the testing. Testing is local. You can't have it both ways. Testing is a local thing.
The president arguing that testing across the country has been sufficient.
Nationwide, we've now conducted over 4 million tests. It's double the number conducted by any other country on earth.
But those numbers still account for less than 2% of the population. It all comes after bipartisan backlash mounted Sunday, with governors from both parties demanding the federal government step up.
We need some of these supplies. The reagents and the swabs are absolutely essential.
We have a shortage, worldwide shortage of some of the materials that go into this. So we really need help.
Now, overnight, the Trump administration announced it will require nursing homes to have more transparency on this issue. A new rule will require those facilities to report any new COVID-19 cases to family members and to the CDC. Meanwhile, later today, Vice President Mike Pence will have a conference call with governors to discuss the ongoing issues surrounding testing and plans to reopen. Savannah?
All right, Kristen, thank you. And as the debate rages over when to lift those stay-at-home orders, several states have already started to loosen restrictions. Some leaders saying it's crucial to get people back to work, but others worry that acting too soon could put lives at risk. NBC's Sam Brock is in Miami this morning with more on that part of the story. Sam, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. It was only 2 weeks ago that Florida's governor issued a statewide lockdown. Now he's telling local government officials they can reopen their beaches if they want to. In Miami-Dade County, you'll see beach closed signs here. No timeline as of yet, but just a little bit farther away, north of here in the Jacksonville area, gatherings up to 50 people are allowed with social distancing guidelines.
Florida beaches that have been empty for weeks are once again crowded with surfers and sun worshipers, jump-starting a nationwide conversation about the right time to reopen the economy.
This can be the beginning of the pathway back to normal life, but please respect and follow these limitations.
In Duval County, a beach reopen order requires social distancing and comes with limited hours. Still, it prompted a nearby beach commissioner to tweet, "This move is so dumb that I had to make sure it wasn't fake news." A banner flying over Miami Beach pleaded for its sandy shores to follow suit and come back. But the Miami-Dade mayor has already said not so fast.
I want to stress that no orders will be lifted as yet.
In Texas, state parks are opening back up today, with the governor dangling the possibility of retail businesses on Friday, but just with pickup options. A few farmers markets in Seattle are back up and running as well, with strict new measures in place. Governors from the hard-hit tri-state area announcing boat yards and marinas can operate for personal use with social distancing and sanitation rules. Parts of North Carolina and California are also reopening beaches with restrictions to mixed reviews.
I think people are going to start abusing the privilege.
The tug of war between business and safety intensifying.
We're wrecking our economy for something that I feel isn't as dangerous as that's put out there.
As the sun rises this morning, a new national NBC News Wall Street Journal poll finding that about 60% of respondents think that governments should be keeping these tighter restrictions in place right now to deal with this pandemic. This right now, Hoda and Savannah, as the governor of Florida is convening a task force right now that's going to meet today and throughout the rest of this week to reopen the economy. Savannah?
All right, Sam, thank you. And as mentioned, one of the major keys to reopening the country is, of course, testing for coronavirus. Experts say without it on a massive scale, it will be impossible to gauge the full scope of the outbreak and who may have protective antibodies. So where do we stand on all of that? Dr. Scott Gottlieb could have some answers. He's the former commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration under President Trump and a CNBC contributor as well. Dr. Gottlieb, good morning. It's good to have you with us.
Thanks.
Before we get to testing, the federal stay-at-home guidelines, as you know, expire in 10 days. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you that some places will reopen before they're ready?
Well, some places are going to reopen. You're going to see different states make different decisions. The states that have been hard hit are probably going to be later to reopen. You'll probably see them reopen sometime in mid-May. States that haven't been that hard hit are probably going to reopen early in May. I think some states are ready to start contemplating slowly reopening their economies in the beginning of May, states that haven't been hard hit. And this is going to be a slow process. It's not going to be a light switch. They're going to reopen gradually over the course of May and June. What you're going to see come back first is recreational activity. Outdoor recreational activity is going to be allowed first. So that's likely to roll out in early May. And as your piece said, some states are already contemplating that. I think in terms of being ready, the things that we're not going to have in place is what we're going to be discussing. The testing isn't going to be in place, and also the contact tracing, the ability to do the work of tracking down everyone who's sick or who might have been in contact with people who's sick. We're not going to have all of those resources in place that we want to have.
Yeah, well, that's the question. I mean, do we have the capacity to do the testing we need to do in order to reopen the economy, which everyone so badly wants?
Well, look, we've made a lot of progress in ramping up testing in this country after having a slow start. And so we're testing probably more than 1 million people a week right now. I think a good rule of thumb would be about 1% of the population on a weekly basis. So the ability to test about 3 million people. We're not going to be there. We're not going to be there in May. We're not going to be there in June. Hopefully we'll be there by September. So the reality is, from a clinical standpoint, we're probably not going to have the optimal amount of testing, but we'll have better testing in place than we did. I think when you look at what we call the positivity rates, how many of the tests that we're conducting right now are actually coming back positive, it's running nationally on the order of 20%. So 20% of all the tests that we're doing nationally are coming back positive. In hard-hit cities like New York, that rate is running around 40%. To give you a basis of comparison, when you look at tuberculosis screening in Bangladesh when they were trying to control outbreaks, or Zika screening when we had Zika outbreaks in Puerto Rico, the positivity rates were about 1%. And so you probably want to see positivity rates well below 5% to know that you're doing enough screening. You want to have a lot of people coming back with negative tests if you know that your screening is widespread enough to try to catch small outbreaks before they become large outbreaks.
But, Doctor, I feel like I just heard you say that we won't really have the testing capacity that we need until probably September. But at the same time, we're actively talking about reopening the economy in many of these states. So why isn't that dangerous to reopen without having that sufficient testing?
It's a risk. There's no question it's a risk. I mean, we won't have the testing that we want until September, I think, in terms of the kind of broad coverage. You're still going to see high positivity rates heading into May. So, look, there's risk here. There's no question about it. We're not going to have all of the tools and all of the screening that we want in place. We're also not going to have all the public health workers to do the contact tracing. That's going to be another limitation. Now, the states have been bringing on personnel to do that. The states are working aggressively to get more screening in place, more testing capacity in place, but it's not going to be in place. If we wait until we have sort of the optimal framework for testing, we'll be waiting until the fall, and that's just not going to be possible from an economic, social, or public health standpoint, because there are public health costs to keeping things shut down. People aren't seeking routine care. Vaccination rates are down. So this is a risk. I mean, the hope is that the summer is going to be somewhat of a backstop against spread of this virus. So as we enter into the summer, hopefully we catch a break with that. We don't know that that's going to be the case. And so we're going to have to take this very slow. I think as businesses start to bring workers back, they should be very careful about doing this gradually and trying to monitor very carefully to make sure there's no upsurge in cases. And since we don't have all this screening that we want in place and we don't have very sensitive measures out there to detect an upsurge in cases, we probably have to take it slower than we otherwise might have if we had broader testing in place.
All right, Dr. Gottlieb, I mean, it's really disturbing and concerning, but I know that everybody's working hard to try to get this going and being done right. We appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Hoda.
All right, Savannah, thank you. Now to the economic impact of the outbreak. It took just 13 days to deplete that initial $349 billion rescue program for small businesses. So where will Americans now turn for help? NBC's business correspondent Jolene Kent has more on that part of the story. Hey, Joe, good morning.
Hey, Hoda, good morning to you. The White House this morning saying they are inching closer to a deal with the Democrats to provide more relief to small businesses who are hurting. But this is coming as major banks and the relief program itself are now under fire for providing millions of dollars in relief to big businesses instead of the little guys.
A second dose of desperately needed relief funding could soon be on the way from Washington. It's supposed to help thousands of small businesses struggling to survive what's now being called the coronavirus recession.
We're continuing to negotiate with the Democrats. We're getting close to a deal.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin hopes the new agreement will pass the Senate today, the House tomorrow, and be up and running by Wednesday. The bill would add to the Paycheck Protection Program, giving small businesses with fewer than 500 employees a chance to receive emergency forgivable loans.
Another $300 billion should be sufficient to reach almost everybody.
But the first batch of money ran out within minutes of applications opening. The struggle to get loan money also prompting new outrage about exactly who is getting funded. Government documents show major restaurant chains like Potbelly, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and Shake Shack received a combined $40 million because of a loophole that allowed them to apply as long as they don't have more than 500 workers per location. Overnight, the CEO of Shake Shack, with 8,000 employees, reversed course, saying it'll return the $10 million PPP loan it received after securing other funds, so that those restaurants who need it most can get it now. In Florida, Kim Farrow, the co-owner of a construction business, furloughed 14 workers after applying for the federal loans at 8 different banks.
What's your reaction when you hear that big businesses, restaurant chains, are getting slices of the PPP?
If they already have enough money to sustain the next 6 months, then why not help all these small businesses that don't have the funds?
The mother of 7 is frustrated but hopeful she and her husband's company will be funded if Washington strikes a new deal.
I don't sleep at nights right now because I'm just waiting for someone from, the bank to email or just something, to show that there's hope.
Also new this morning, according to Reuters, the luxury department store Neiman Marcus is reportedly close to filing or considering filing for bankruptcy. And this morning, Neiman Marcus is not commenting to NBC News. Hoda?
All right, Jolene Kent for us. Joe, thank you. Savannah, over to you.
Well, Yeah, some good news, Hoda, for couples in New York who are looking to tie the knot during this time of social distancing. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo announced this weekend that couples will now be able to file for marriage licenses remotely. Up until now, it had to be done in person. Also, as part of that executive order, clerks will be authorized to conduct wedding ceremonies over video conferencing, such as Zoom or FaceTime, which of course gives couples who don't want to postpone their big day some options until things get back to normal. So hopefully there's a good connection.
Yeah.
And not that, what you cut out on I do. What?
All right. Zooming a wedding. That's going to be something new. Exactly. All right. Hey, how about we check out the weather, Savannah? We got Mr. Roker joining us. Hey, Al.
Hey guys, good morning. Good to see you. And as we start off the week, we're starting just like we did last week with severe weather to talk about. As we look and show you, we're looking at severe storms right now firing up through northern Florida. 11 million people under tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches as this system pushes to the south and to the east. Strong storms off the Carolina coast. In fact, we do have a risk of severe weather today along the South and North Carolina coast and all the way down to the Georgia coast. Hail, damaging winds. Tomorrow, a risk back through the Central Plains and into the Northeast for strong storms, damaging winds, hail possible, a very active week. Then as we get to Wednesday afternoon, we're looking at 15 million people at risk for severe weather as well. This system moves off the coast, ending storms early this morning, or late this morning, I should say. Then as we get into tomorrow, a new line of storms and showers approach the coast, maybe some wet snow for New England, and then moving into Wednesday, more severe weather developing from Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and on into parts of Arkansas. Rest of the day around the country, sunshine out west, plenty of sunshine down through Texas.